Welcome back to SwitchCorner, my name is Alex and today we're taking a look at Sea of Solitude, the director's cut on the Switch. An exclusive build of the game with a few adaptations. How does it play, and is this a port worth investing in? Well, hit subscribe if you love the Switch, as much as we would do here. Join our growing family and let's get started. The story, and for spoilers sake I'm not going to be giving you too much. The idea though is this: you are Kay and you are exploring a fantastical world that is drowned by water and darkness. You must now set out to not only conquer her fears but also face themes of depression, loneliness and pain. It brings the family into the tale too as you dive into their individual challenges, and all of this is then represented in the world design itself and the way they use, black and white and colour. The story is decent, it tackles some challenging topics, and while a few areas didn't quite land for me, for the most part I enjoyed this journey of self-discovery alongside Kay. This director's cut then, it is worth knowing it has been rewritten for this Switch release. So gameplay on this is an incredibly simplistic experience, relying on just a few mechanics to explore this world. You can jump, you can fire a beacon of sorts. It basically leads the way where when you may be struggling. It even uncovers some secrets at moments, and then you can sail a boat which acts as your transport from one location to the next. It may look at times like an open world, but I would describe this more as mini sandboxes with very linear gameplay within them. That's very much at the forefront. Basically the game it goes like this: reach this point, get a new checkpoint, move on. There is a few secret battles to uncover in this world. I found maybe half of them, so there is some excuse for a replay of this one, but I think a little less handholding would have been a good thing here just to take advantage of these sandbox worlds. Gameplay wise though, you'll typically be solving very simplistic platforming puzzles. They normally come down to figuring out how to reach a location. I didn't once get stuck or lost. I typically looked for a ledge of some sort and began that ascent. Alongside this then the sailing, you'll be avoiding the occasional obstacles, so think maybe these fences that blow out air, or maybe enemies. You can't fight back against them, but you can turn on a light source to kind of dispel them. But the best bit of the gameplay, it's gotta be the swimming. In these moments you need to traverse from rooftop to rooftop of these underwater worlds, and there's just dramatic waves, along with swimming enemies that kill you instantly. It was by far the most exciting moment of the game. There was something just incredibly satisfying here in seeing your timing, your enemy placement, and almost a stealth approach to it come together perfectly to work out. That's honestly really it gameplay wise. Outside of reaching the checkpoints, connecting with these sources of pain, that's what you're kind of collecting, that's what your adventure is for. You suck those up into your backpack. That's about it. It's not a game that's focused on challenge or even mechanics. It wants to hook you with its story, and while I did enjoy the tale, it definitely felt a little weak on the mechanics front. Everything in here has, from a gameplay perspective, been done better elsewhere before. The controls feel slow and slightly sluggish almost. The climbing, for the most part, it does work, but it's all very canned and specific in how you must, approach these moments. And then a few areas it tries to reach outside the formula, but it kind of ends up feeling like padding, like a moment where you must stealth around a location. Again, like everything else, it works, but the slow speed here is forced, the crouch is forced, and you simply point the direction you want to go. Give me more control over these moments, let me decide the level of risk I take, and I promise you the reward in overcoming these moments, it would have just been so much more. Overall, Sea of Solitude's gameplay, it works. I just wouldn't call it particularly exciting. Some basic platforming with a very linear path to that end game. It just misses the opportunity to take advantage of what I would call decently sized sandbox locations. Finally, it is also a short one. It took me right around 3 hours to beat it, but alongside the battles we do at least also get achievements that may drive you to come back and have another replay, of course if that is your thing. No difficulty options though, or New Game Plus to face here. So graphically, the director's cut is a new build of the game. This is not simply a port, rather they've gone in, they've clearly tweaked some of the locations, some of the design, the textures, to make it run as smooth as possible on the Switch. And that is, I've got to say, very apparent, because the frame rate here for 99% of the experience, it's just fine. It's floating right around 28 to 30 frames per second. There was one moment where it hit low 20s, but this was maybe a couple of minutes at the very most. For the most part, you wouldn't even notice it's dropping below 30, honestly. The world's detail then at times it can be a little lacking, where the textures have next to no detail. It can also have a bit of a soft image as well, but I think given the scale, they've done a good job of porting it across. The worlds, they change frequently, the weather changes, the water, rises and drops, the colour palette quickly flips, and then Kay and the monsters just beautifully animated. Other issues then, some clipping throughout with Kay's almost spiky like design, that was very clear, and then popping. These are, as I said, small sandboxes. You will for sure notice buildings and textures popping in the background. This is weirdly especially noticeable in the last 2 to 3 minutes of gameplay, but none of it impacts the game itself, the challenge. Everything that pops in isn't necessarily somewhere you need to be. There's also then a screen tear kind of like distortion effect at times. Seemed to have been a design decision, but I'm not sure it was for me. Finally, graphically, to wrap up on a high note, I think the real winner here, it's got to be the water. It's stunning as it brings waves crashing around you, and while they haven't gone for realism, its intensity is very much apparent. So audio finally, and first it is fully voice acted. These are new actors compared to the original release of the game. Supposedly that release, the performance is there a little weak. I can say here though, these new actors, they absolutely deliver. I thought the acting was great from start to finish, and no doubt the apparently stronger script played a part in delivering this. Then sound effects are solid throughout, from the water to the more mystical to buildings that crumble. It has everything you would expect. Finally though, the music, mostly kind of minor chill orchestral, it's a strong score that absolutely captures the emotion Kay is facing. The music's highlighted though as the credits roll. There's a full track, vocals, the full on performance completely stood out and was a nice cap to the experience. So overall, Sea of Solitude has some decent story that's not shy of challenging topics, and yes, a few areas miss on the writing front, but for the most part it's solid for those that want something just a little bit different. This is then reinforced by, for the most part, solid audio and graphical design. Unfortunately though, it is let down by the repetitive and kind of bland gameplay, where it tries to add in things like obstacles and challenges, but the engine's so simplistic, it never feels very satisfying to overcome, because as I said, the game honestly 90% of the time just screams at you, go here, follow the beacon, and that's about it. There is a few highlights, the swimming, avoiding monsters, the sailing. Unfortunately though, these moments, they are too few and far between, so if you do come here, my warning, I wouldn't necessarily come here for the gameplay itself, but rather the intrigue of the story. That's what kept me personally pushing forward, and in the end, I wasn't disappointed after the 3-hour runtime. On that note, the 3 hours, for some that will be too short given the price point, but for me, for this experience, it did feel just right. An above average 6 out of 10 from me. The gameplay just can't reach the quality of the rest of the package, but I'm excited now to see where this team goes next, because one thing is guaranteed, they show a ton of potential. With that then, a shout out to the patrons of the channel who are just going above and beyond to support SwitchCorner. It helps more than you know, so thank you all so much. If you do want to check that out for yourself, I have linked it in the video description down below. Then hit subscribe if you love the Switch, as much as we all do here. Join our growing family, and I'll see you all on the next video. Thanks everyone.